Hi, welcome to the Cancer Cottage Healing Hut, I hope. Today is going to be my last installment of a retrograde storytelling about building the cottage to this point. Going forward, it's going to be more real-time where I'm updating you as I go along. Today I'm going to be talking about roofing, two stages of roofing. One stage is the architect 3 years ago when I sat at his desk up in near the British Columbia border. He's drawing out the cottage. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking about a construction company doing this, because I thought I'd just be doing the fine detailing at the end. So he said the perfect thing for you would be these SIP panels, structural insulated panels. And I didn't know much about them. He said it's insulated. It's just, you don't have to do framing for the roof, that you can put them in one piece. And then you have the ceiling, because I was talking about different ideas for the ceiling. I thought about doing a thatch roof, but anyway, that's another story. But I want to give it the feeling of a very old Scottish barn, stone barn that's been turned into a cottage is the feel I'm trying to get, because I looked at some of those in Scotland. And speaking of which, I'm getting off on tangents, but people have asked, where's the stones? Well, I live in an area of the country that's very prone to huge earthquakes. We're talking about a magnitude 8 to 9 about every 700 years, and we're due for one of those. It's where the Wanafuka plate subducts under the North American plate. And there's a lot of building codes about earthquakes, and one of those, excuse me, is regarding stone structures. I had an architect friend, and actually she was a patient of mine. She was a professor at a architect school, and one day after we were doing a virtual appointment, back when I was healthy and working, and I said, if you have some time, let me ask you a question. I said, I really have this desire to build a stone. As soon as the word stone came out of my mouth, she said, you are not building a stone building in Western Washington. So anyway, that became true. You cannot build a solid stone building. I'd even designed one that had these columns inside the stone of rebar and concrete, but she said, you'll never get it through the county. So anyway, you can build a stone structure, but it has to have a wooden frame, and it has to have seismic anchors all over to withstand an earthquake at least to 7.5. You get to a 9, all bets are off. What would withstand a 9? Plus, we are prone to tsunamis here as well. And if a tsunami came in, and it could come right here to this point, if the tsunami was more than, I think I have 80 feet clearance between here and the sea. If a tsunami came through more than 80 feet, it could hit me. But anyway, that's why you look around, you see wood framing. Stones will come, I promise you, but it's going to be down the road. But anyway, this architect was drawing out these plans with these SIP panels, and little did I know, while they had some benefits, it given me the opportunity. He called it a clean slate or a palette. The ceiling of where I could put any kind of ceiling I wanted, anything. Excuse me. So little did I think that I was going to have to take over this whole project. As I said, until that point, the only thing I had done by professionals was the foundation, and I'd done everything else myself. And I laid in bed literally many, many nights, worried to death. How in the world am I going to get those panels up? And then the panels arrived from the factory up in British Columbia. And when I saw them and unloaded them from the truck, I was driving the forklift, I saw how massive they were, 8 foot by 16 feet, at least 400 pounds. And when I stacked them up here for probably 2-3 months, and I kept looking at them thinking, how in the heck am I going to get those up there, with a peak at 20 feet? Well, fortunately, I started talking to some construction people, but the problem with that was the construction company said, we either build the whole thing or nothing. We're not going to just put your SIP panels on. So, and when they say build the whole thing, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm talking $300,000 more for stonework, which is insane for a cottage. So I knew I had to do it all myself. But my son, who lives locally and had been a framer, and now is a cabinet maker, and he builds stairs and doors, very fine, the very fine end of woodworking. he had a couple friends that were framers. They'd never put on SIP panels before, but they talked, they watched some videos, they said, we think we can do it. So it was such a godsend. It was such a relief in August. The problem was, though, they had a busy schedule. I was hoping they'd be available at the end of September, and all of a sudden I get a call, they're available in 2 weeks, and my framing wasn't ready. So I'm going to try to integrate my cancer story a little bit more with the Cottage, because I know there's some people with multiple myeloma and other cancers that are watching this. But my fatigue level from chemo and just from having the cancer is pretty drastic. I can put in 3-4 hours a day of manual labor, and then I am shot. But I had to work 8 to 9, 10 hours a day for 3 weeks to get this place ready for those SIP panels. And during that time, I tore a meniscus in my knee, and it was very painful, very swollen, and going to physical therapy for that. And then I injured my foot. And you know, I was exhausted, just exhausted. And I finally got everything I needed to do almost. I had to go back and fix some things later after they left. And they came in, I had a big extended forklift that would extend out 45 feet, which is just barely enough. And I think I have 1 or 2 pictures there as I'm talking will probably pop up of where my son drove the forklift and lifted these panels. The 2 other guys were up on the rafters, not rafters, some beams, standing, hooking those panels on, but it was really complicated. It took them, the 3 of them, I think 6 days to get the panels on. So you can imagine me by myself, it would have been a total disaster. The panels would have been crooked if I didn't drop them and break them. So anyway, I was very thankful for that, although it was exhausting trying to get ready for them. I mostly stayed out of their way. That's why I don't have a lot of footage, plus I didn't have a camera at the time. So that was that part. And then the other problem, I had already started talking to roofers, because the panels go on, it's OSB, it's this, we can't see it now, I've got it covered up, but it's a stranded plywood that it's strong unless it gets wet and acts like a sponge. And then in this case, the SIP panels have styrofoam in the middle, so if the boards get wet, they can't dry through the bottom, because that styrofoam is waterproof. So the company up in British Columbia said, do not let these get wet. Holy cow. It became a nightmare, because I could not get a roofer. This is an area that getting skilled workers is very difficult. I think I made contact with 20-some roofing companies to trying to find a roofer. In the meantime, I got these 2 big tarps. I had to sew them together because they didn't make a tarp big enough, and put over the whole cottage once those SIP panels were on to keep the rain off. And it was daily trying to manage those. We get a lot of wind here, and I had ropes running everywhere trying to keep those that tarp over it. And that was sort of funny. But I'd be up here, and it reminded me of being on a sailboat out in a storm, because I'm in the cottage running from here and there, pulling in lines or ropes, trying to tighten on this end, and then the other end would get loose. And this went on for days and days. I finally started with 20-some roofing companies. I finally got estimates by 6 people. Although they didn't come in boom, 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 boom. It was like they come and say, I'll give you an estimate, and disappear off the face of the earth. And I'm calling, hello, estimate, you're going to give me an estimate? And it drag on for weeks and weeks. I don't understand that, how that works with skilled workers. I feel like if I could start a company, I wouldn't. But if I could, I'd put a few grandmas up at the desk to answer the phones and take messages, because the guys just don't return messages. So it went on for weeks. So the SIP panels were put on in second week of August, 3rd week of August. I didn't get a roofer out here until late October. And I tried daily trying to get roofers out here and trying to get estimates. And then the estimates finally came in, and they came in from $4,500. This is just for labor, all the way up to $32,000. What was estimated to be 3 days of labor. So $10,000 a day this guy wanted to do the labor. That's all. It was mind-blowing. I didn't understand that. But I am trying, I often see myself in many ways as a salmon swimming upstream, because I'm trying to build a cottage that has a feel of being 200 years old. And the American culture likes cookie cutter stuff. They like fake stuff. There's paneling that looks like rock, all this garbage that people, contractors, people want to push on me. Oh yeah, this is quick and it's cheap. No, 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 no. I want to do it the hard way. So I honestly checked into thatch, using thatch roofing, but then the county, they're worried about fires, even though the thatcher I found in Virginia, he's British, or he's from Scotland actually, would have been perfect. And he gave me evidence that thatch roofs are more resistant to forest fires than many other types of roofs, but it didn't matter. The architects at the county would not go for it. So that defeated that dream. And then I was going to do a metal roofing that looked like slate. I wanted to do slate, but that was going to be too heavy. And then I watch a lot of YouTube videos like this. I watched some from the UK, and this architect in the UK who redoes old homes. Excuse me. He was working with a couple that was turning an old 300 or 400-year-old barn into living quarters, and they wanted to do the same thing I was going to do, put in metal roofing that looked like slate. And he said he has a rule, and I really like this guy, this architect. I said, I have a rule. You never use a material that's pretending to be another material. He said, I recommend corrugated barn roofing metal. And that's what this couple decided to do. And it looked really nice. It was their home. It's an old barn that they turned into their home. So I was starting to look at things like that. And one day I was in the local building store and I'm looking at all the roofing, just a typical American roofing stuff. At the very end was a corrugated steel that looked rusty, and I'd seen some that were painted to look rusty on the web. And I talked to the roofing expert, and he said, no, that's actually rust. They make a panel, metal panel, that rusts quickly, like within days. And I said, but doesn't it rust through? And he said, no, it's a special alloy. It's got copper, nickel, and chromium in it that lets just the surface rust, and then the integrity of the panel will last for decades. Unfortunately, and it's like everything I choose, it was more expensive than their other roofing, but that's what I decided on. And that's why when I started out with 24 roofers, down to 8 all said, I'm not doing it. I'm not putting that roofing on. They only do their cookie cutter roofing. They have like three colors of roofing they do, and that's it. So I finally got these independent roofers, agreeable, 6 of them, to put this metal on. Now, I went for the cheapest guy. And then once I agreed on him, signed a contract, it was very hard to get him back. I don't know what was going on there. But then the roofing came in, and he started working with it, and it was much heavier. I knew it was a 22 gauge, so it's much heavier than normal roofing. So I heard a lot of complaining, and I called the manufacturer of this roofing. I called him, talked to him. They said the screws go right through this roofing. But I don't know who's telling the truth, but he said that's impossible. The screws would not penetrate this metal roofing. Therefore, they had to hand drill all these panels, which was a huge undertaking. And they went through lots and lots of saw blades because they had to cut this with an angle grinder, all the shapes they needed. But they ended up doing a good job, and I'm glad about that. And I agreed to raise their estimate because the work they put in was probably double what they thought to do, but they got it done. And I'm pleased. The metal is already rusty. I'm going to show you some leftover panels I have over here, and I'm trying to actually sell those. Because that's not cheap. But you can see the patina of it gives that look I'm looking for. So that's the roofing story. And I'm going to end this fairly quick. I'm going to keep most of these YouTube things down to 10 minutes going forward once I get into the real life things. But people have asked me, how's my cancer fit into this? Well, I've already talked about fatigue. Now, I am fighting a cold I've been fighting, 4 weeks now, and that's one of the problems I have. Multiple myeloma is a cancer of the immune system, and it makes me very vulnerable. And the people who die from multiple myeloma, most of them die from overwhelming infections. So I'm sort of like the bubble boy without the bubble. And so it brings back this story where I became a hermit because I was put on quarantine after a bone marrow transplant 4 years ago, and then COVID hit, and I had to stay in quarantine 2 more years, meaning not leaving my house except for medical appointments. Profoundly lonely. That's why I really came up with the idea of building the cottage and pursued it for the sake of my sanity. But I listen to a lot of podcasts and music and also books when I'm working. And I listened to a couple of podcasts this week. One was a study of what people can do looking at data what people can do to prolong their life. Not people with cancer, but anybody. And some of the things were interesting. One, you'll be surprised about this, a flu shot gives more value to living longer than exercise or weight loss. That was really interesting. But the two top things that determine how long you live were, number two was having a very good friends. And the definition of very good friends, someone that you could actually call and say, I need to borrow some money, it's urgent, and they would loan you the money. Or I'm in a personal crisis, come and sit with me and talk with me. Very few people have a friend like that. I'm not sure if I do or not. I can't imagine asking somebody to borrow money. But but the number one issue was social contacts on a daily basis. I completely violate that. And, I don't blame the cancer doctors putting me on quarantine. They really had no choice. When COVID first hit, before there were vaccinations, the death rate for someone with exactly what I have, multiple myeloma with related renal failure, based on Asian studies, was 64% chance of death if you get the infection. The rest of the world doesn't understand that. I had someone I know confront me in Safeway for wearing a mask, call me a coward. And people who don't have cancer don't understand you're playing with fire when you go out. So now that I've had all the vaccinations I can have, I feel a little bit safer, and I'm going out more, and I'm trying to get a little bit more social action. I went to a concert, high school concert this week, the first one in 5 years I've gone to. And then my wife and I went to Seattle and went to a play at a very intimate theater. There's about 200 people, I bet, but we were crowded in. And it was a great play, A Christmas Carol. And then we went to a movie, and fortunately, it is an IMAX theater. I bet it had 20 people in it, so you had plenty of space, but it was the James Webb Telescope event. And I really love science, especially astrophysics and anthropology and archaeology, those things that follow. And I'm peripherally involved with a local church, and I don't think I fit into church culture anymore. That's another story, and I won't get into it in this. But the church does have some social programs I'm going to try to get more involved with. I really support those things, but just the cultural ideas of church. I grew up in the Bible Belt, and I finally realized I don't fit in that, and it's always awkward when I try to. They're good people. But anyway, so I'm trying to find some social outlets for me. And I think a lot of cancer patients and patients with chronic illnesses and things face this social isolation. Anyway, that's it. The next time I come back, and we're going to be talking about wrapping. You can see behind me the cottage. I'm not done wrapping. Matter of fact, that's what I'm doing today, is finishing up wrapping. So this will be a real-time video, and try to limit to 10 minutes. But you have a really good day.